Okay, so we've got everything recording and ready to go. So we won't hear if anybody else comes in, but everybody knows the drill. So there we are. Oh, actually, it looks like Linda Moore just joined. 13, there we are. I'm telling you, there's something about that number when we see it all the time. There's no mistakes. I always say it. Everyone has always said it, and it's really true. Everything's an energy event and a frequency. So tonight, as we start this, we're going to be at 13. We'll see if we get to 20 like we have the last 3 or 4 times. So anyway, well, welcome for everybody that has joined us for the call, and I hope you're all doing really good considering the energies that we're in. If you look at the external world that's going crazy and that's being presented in the media, it's pretty out there. There's things that we're saying that are unprecedented. There's a lot of shifting, and there's a lot of reasons for the shifting. And I've talked about these things in other calls, but I'm going to go into it a little bit more deeper right now because of the dynamic that we're in and what's happening on a collective level. So, actually, let me get my charger, charge my phone. My phone stays constantly in a place of depletion because I'm so busy calling this one and doing this and that, and it's been a lot. Okay, so I'm going to put the phone over here. Okay, so as we've gone through this year, we've had a very, I think, tumultuous time, going through the change. Just a little recap of the energies, just to remind us what's happened. And these are big shifts. Last year we had the nodes going back through the Aries Libra axis, which is the I am presence as opposed to the other, whoever the other is, in reflection to who we are. And that also includes our perception of God, because God is everything, and everyone in the other that we see in relationships is anything but us. And of course that's the perceived separation, which doesn't really exist. There's no separation. So as that separation perception continues to disintegrate on itself, what we've had this year going in is, of course, all of these changes and shifts into Aries, which is the I am presence. And that really is where all of the inner work is done. And so, Neptune, of course, entered Aries on the 30th of March after we had Venus and Mercury both going back into Pisces at the same time. That was no coincidence for that to happen. Those are two of our core personal planets, how we express ourselves, Mercury, how we love and perceive our world in the material world, but also, people we love and how we love, Venus, both going in the same time Neptune comes back into Aries, or for the first time. And that was kind of like the energies were working against each other in a way, but they were on purpose. Mercury and Venus going back into Pisces was about revisiting that last part of our old life before trying to solidify the new beginnings. Neptune is the new dream. It's also, in its highest version, it's also delusion in the lower version. And of course, we're seeing all of that play out right now. Neptune coming into Aries, and then Venus and Mercury came back in. Middle of April was Mercury, and Venus May 1st, and so then we actually we could speak again more clearly. Having revisited anything about our past, in the spring, and then also deciding how we love. And of course, when that met back up with Neptune again, it really kind of give us a new perception of reality going in through May. And then when we were going into May, at the end of May, we had Saturn coming into Aries. And of course, that's what gives the dream structure. And those planets, all the outer planets represent bigger aspects of change. That change happens over time. It's almost never something that you see immediately unless it's aspected directly by something else in your chart, individually or collectively. So if there is a big aspect that's happening in the collective, if some placement in your chart, then you're also going to have something that draws your attention to it. It's either a conscious or unconscious aspect that's being met, something you have to face within yourself or not. And so with Saturn giving Neptune structure, those two are going to be traveling together at the beginning of Aries, 0 to 2 degrees, all the way through, let me see, Saturn goes back into Pisces again. They both go back in for one last visit before we really step into our new world in February next year. But Saturn's going to do it August the 31st, and Neptune not all the way until October 21st, retrograding back into Pisces. So by October 21st, they're going to both be back in Pisces, and it's going to be like re-looking at everything that we have not wanted to face about our lives before really starting to give structure to our new creations, and that won't be until February next year. I've been charting all this in this spreadsheet I've been doing. I've got almost 40 transiting planets now tracked for the last 2 years, 2024 to 2025 in this chart. It really is. It's amazing what I've done here. I can't wait to do the video. I know y'all are tired of waiting for it, but I have to get it all done before I present it out in form and put it out for everybody. But I think people are going to be blown away. Anyway, but the point is, this is a year of a lot of review. And so, Louise, it was perfect, what you shared about what you're going through right now, because it really kind of validates what I've mentioned before. Spirit has basically said we are in a bardo state, individual and collective. We have to go face all of the parts of ourselves that we have not owned or that we've not really looked at, really in this lifetime. But this goes back many lifetimes. This is a multidimensional bardo state. And to explain that again, I think we may have one or two newer people on the call, or maybe one or two that have not been on for a while. The bardo state, just a quick thing, the perception, the way I perceive it from everything I have read, is when you're getting ready to leave here in the physical, you go back, your spirit goes back and merges with the all that is, with presence, with God, however you want to term that, and we recapitulate everything in our lives cumulative up to that point. And that's a multidimensional recapitulation. It's not just this lifetime. It's a complete soul progression up to where you are in that moment. And I know this is so hard, I think, for people to even conceptualize. Imagine that you have to face the totality of everything you've ever created in every single nanosecond that you've been in a conscious embodiment of a separation embodiment in the physical. And it's vast. And of course, that's your own personal accumulation through the Akashic records of your conscious and also unconscious choices that we make. And all of that is, of course, tied in to our genetic and ancestral inheritance. And again, Louise, perfect, that you're going through this and you're having a perception of this. You said you had to go face. You wanted to know. You had to know in your core what was up there and what was out there. And that's perfect because you're doing it in a conscious way. A lot of people on the planet are doing it in an unconscious way because that we don't resist will always persist. And it's one reason why people never heal. in perception anyway. In truth, we are not a disease pattern. We never were. But we've taken on disease patterning, and we identify with the disease pattern, and so that disease pattern takes us over. And we don't really understand that, and we're not taught that in schools, of course. We're not trained how to go into that. We're not trained to go. Well, I mean, a lot of people, if I were to mention the Akashic records, they would look at me like, "What the hell are you talking about?" You know, I mean, I've read about these things for almost 20 years. You've heard about them, you know, with either working with Judith or through me or somebody else, I'm sure. If you're not, just a quick thing, you know, one or two of you may not have had the term. I mean, I don't ever want to assume that everyone has heard that type of thing. So just a quickie. I mean, the Akashic Records basically it's a recording in the field of every single aspect of every creation, of every man, woman, and child, every sentient, non-sentient. It's the records of our complete existence, and it can go as vast and as deep as you can you know, have the capacity to discuss it and perceive it. But let's just go to the personal you. For right now, what we're doing, again, and this is why, you know, with this Bardo state that I'm talking about, we're having to face the deepest dark places that we've not owned. And if you look at the external world, I hate to make it a political thing, and I'm not going to make it political, but let's just take the people that are operating in the political world. All of those souls came here to do exactly what they're doing at this particular moment of time. Now, if you are in a place where you're just observing what is being put out through the media services, you know, the multi, you know, the regular mainstream medias, you're getting a narrative, and the narrative is it's safe for the people that are involved in the narrative, because they need that narrative to stay and hold structure for what they think reality is. And this may be hard for some people, but really, as you go into this and you hear what I'm saying here, just open your heart and allow it to move through you. So many times when we talk about these things, we go into a resistance. And if you're in any type of resistance, this is going to be a place where you're invited to go in and ask who is in resistance. If there's something that gets activated within you, and this is every nanosecond of every single day that we're ever alive, and it's really true. If you're ever in resistance to something or you're in reaction, go sit with who is in reaction. I cannot stress this enough right now, especially if you're watching, the mainstream media and news, and you're observing things. I mean, this can even be in your own neighborhood. You know, your family, your friends, local political structures, local business decisions, governmental decisions that affect, how your own tax dollars are spent within your neighborhoods. I mean, this is as micro or macro as you can perceive, because it's all being affected. And the reason it's being affected is because the morphogenetic field, which is, it's hard to explain the way that is, but so the all that is just the field. That's everything is God. The field is always in response to who we are as a collective consciousness. Every man, woman, and child, 8 billion people, are affecting the morphogenetics of the field. So if it is a collective reflection of who we are, then it has to take into account the conscious and the unconscious aspects of where each of us are. I mean, that's a lot of people on the planet, and it's hard for your brain to go there. Don't even attempt to make it a mental thing. Open your heart and feel into this. because this is a big deal. And the more you can take in that wide perception of reality, the more you will feel into how vast we are as cosmic beings, but also it'll take you into a better perception of your own reality and where you fit into the field and how you're affecting the field. It's so vast. When you really feel into it, it's like, I mean, we don't, as a general rule, take into account all of the things happening in other countries on the planet. We just don't. We're entrained away from that. We're entrained away from all the different enslavement patterns. We're entrained away from the way that so many people are living their life in distortion. They're living their life through just various enslavements because of the circumstances that are projected onto them through the financial controls, government controls, educational controls, religious controls. When you go into all of this and you start really releasing that stuff at your core, and I think most of the people on this call have, because you've worked with Judith and or me with this over the years, you've released enough and stepped into your own power to a point where other people, as far as thoughts or things, don't really affect you anymore. It doesn't mean that you're not in a place of empathy when people are going through pain or suffering or whatever else, but you've probably reached a point where you don't take it personally anymore. And that, I think, is one of the most difficult parts of this journey, is to no longer personalize other people's pain and suffering. And I can speak to that personally for going through what I'm doing with, the two great aunts and my dad. When I'm in their presence and they're in a deep pain or suffering, I try to feel into, just through observation. I mean, you don't want to go in and identify with anyone's pain, and you don't want to take on anyone's pain. But to be able to start perceiving on a deeper level where, people are at that you're having to deal with. I mean, if they're in your sphere, they're in your sphere. And you can't pick and choose necessarily who you're assisting in life. I mean, you can, but at the same time, I mean, you also, this is part of the soul work. Let me just put it that way. There's so many people that are walking away from their deeper soul work, especially with regards to their family, aging family, or people that don't have any other assistance whatsoever. And because people are walking away from their own soul work on the ancestral and the genetic inheritance, it leaves those people that have to have someone else come and pick up the slack. And we always ask ourselves, well, is it our responsibility or someone else's responsibility? The truth is, it depends on where's your heart. If your heart is drawn to assist someone, then you'll do that. If your heart is not drawn to do that, then you will not. And there is no right or wrong answer to this. This is the other thing I really want to make clear on this. Every single human is in a very unique perspective at any given point of life. You are never required to do or not do anything, ever. Not ever. There's no requirements. If your heart is drawn to assist someone else, if spirit works through you to be of service to someone else in your family life and lineage, then that's what you'll do. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be a difficult thing. It doesn't mean that it's going to be something that feels like a divine flow. This can be really challenging. And again, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to this. So, and it took me a bit of time to really feel into what that was like, especially working with Judith for the last 20 years. There would be times it would come up, and I would feel like I was supposed to do something, and then she would say, "But are you supposed to do it?" And it made me question, not from a mental standpoint, but from a heart standpoint. And we always have the power to go in and assist others, but we don't always take the time to do the deep dive for ourselves. And the reason I bring that up is because, like Louise had mentioned, she's doing this whole personal deep dive. We'll go through moments of time where there'll be dynamics where Spirit takes us into ourselves, and doing that personal journey is really important. I mean, as long as we're alive, we're not going to not do the personal journey. I mean, you can sit here and go into, what do they call it, spiritual bypassing, and then just not say, I'm just not going to deal with that. But at some point, you have to deal with it. You have to go, face yourself. Sometimes, though, you'll go and do the deep dive, and you may go do, like Jude, when I first started working with her, the first 3 years was primal work. I would go to her house, and I would find myself on the floor just, gasping for air. I couldn't breathe, couldn't go do this. She's like, stay with it. So you're going through and you're doing all the primal inner child work and, playing whatever out. And you get out whatever you have to get to the next point. But you don't have to just stay in whatever process that is. I mean, there's plateaus, and then there's also moments where you're going into expansion and contraction of the soul while you go in and release all the baggage. And that's really part of what we're doing right now, because the more you can go in and own all of those places. Jude always said you can't give away something you don't own. It is totally true. And you have to own it all the way to the core of your bones. I mean, all the way to the core of the bones. That's not an easy thing to feel into, especially if you are an overly emotional individual. If you're someone that takes on other people's pain and suffering, which we did not come here to do, just FYI. And yet sometimes we do it because it's easier to attend someone else's pain and suffering than it is to attend our own pain and suffering. And in that point, we're doing a spiritual bypass. We'll say, okay, I'm going to justify spending this time and I'm helping this person. But if you're not helping yourself first, then you're doing yourself a disservice, and it puts you out of balance. For I guess less, for better or less, as far as a way to articulate something with that. So, and I say all of that to, I guess, as a bigger dynamic to let you go into perceive the vastness of what we're doing right now. And I know that was a lot of stuff, and some of it I've mentioned before, some of it not. And again, when I talk about this stuff, I mean, I'm just going wherever Spirit takes me. I mean, there's not a personal me that's telling you this. I mean, Spirit just starts talking, and I'm like, okay, there we go. And I never know where these calls are going to go, like, ever. So, I mean, I'm looking at this astrology spreadsheet, but then Spirit will take me over here. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I really get where Jude would go with some of these things sometimes. So, again, the dynamic of this is really feeling primal. Here's the other reason for this. Uranus is just entered. Well, actually, did it enter Gemini yet? Let me see. No, it doesn't until, let's see. Oh, it's about another month before Uranus goes in. Okay. Uranus is still at the end of Taurus at the 29th degree. So there's a lot of, at that 29th degree, it's an anaretic degree. It's in with the Pleiades. It's past Algol, but it's far enough past Algol it shouldn't be too difficult. But it is in the Pleiades. So we've got all these Pleiadian energies that are coming in for people that have had that as part of their life path. Uranus, again, it's that shocking revelatory stuff. So we're going to continue to have shocks and all these kinds of things. Taurus is earth, it's grounded. So all the way, between now and let's say July the 10th, I think there's still going to be all sorts of shocking earth events. But it's also going to be things that break apart any other type of structures like in our life. If you've got something heavy earth, structure with Taurus, this could hit you personally if you have something like that. Until it gets into Gemini at 0 degrees. At that point, it's going to be sextiling the new dream, which is Neptune and Aries, which are still at 1 and 2 degrees. So at that point, we'll have, I think, more of a divine flow, or at least as far as shocks, shock and awe. But we can have revelatory things come to us in the new dream when Uranus enters Gemini, because sextiles are much more workable energy. And the other part to that, Sedna is one of those dwarf planets that's way out there, but it's a massive energy, and it's kind of like, gosh, how do I explain Sedna? It depends on how much you want to go into the mythology of stuff, and I'm really trying to actually get us to a place where we're no longer bound by the mythology. But this is the part that's really challenging that I've been going into. When I look at I have mapped the whole cosmos. And again, I've mapped 40, plus stars with all this. And I haven't got all the outer, dwarf planets in yet, but there's a lot of energy that works through, on the collective level. And again, I look at the astrology as kind of like spirituality, training wheels with spirituality. It's like for people that are not deeply grounded in their heart, they can look to see how dynamics are operating within their life and give it a little bit of structure and meaning and things like that. But at the same time, I don't want to tie too much to the structure, because the one thing that Judith would always train us going into, especially with workshops and the retreats, is how to go into heart awareness. So, rather than looking at something in the external, how do we let the external world inform us? And I do want to not forget that, because that's really important. There is one more thing that I want to go into with regards to this and why things are pretty difficult. Let me see. Oh, they've talked about Jupiter going into Cancer, and of course, that just happened today, the 11th. Okay, or maybe it was yesterday. Anyway, that going into Cancer is squaring Neptune and Saturn. So those squares, that's one of the big things that I was reading about, they were talking about. And Mercury had just met up with Jupiter. So, that's a lot of expansive energy. But as it squares this new energy, it's also creating this depth that we came here to work with. They also talk about this squaring the nodes, that this particular moon is squaring the north and south nodes. And the way that works out is the north node is what we came here to do. It's the work that we're working toward. The south node, of course, is everything that's been our past. But it is our gifts. It's all the above, the good, the bad, the ugly. But what we do have, the moon is actually at 20 Sagittarius, which means the sun is at 20 Gemini. So a Gemini sun is all in communication, and it's communicating with Sagittarius, which is more, it can be more of our kind of gregarious self, the partier, the person that really is easy to work with out there. But Gemini is the twins, and so when we're doing that, the nodes, of course, are in Pisces, Virgo, and Pisces, that's where the north node is. So that's taking us into kind of a deeper spirituality, because Pisces is all the stuff it's that hidden, more magical aspect of who we are. It's water. It's all the connectivity with all of that. And then, Virgo, I mean, the way I perceive Virgo is more of the virginal self. I mean, the aspect of you that in your totality, in your highest aspect, you would be acting from a place, or perceiving yourself from a place of more of a pristine kind of awareness to me. So when you put that in opposition to the more, I guess, spiritual part of yourself, in Pisces, it creates an interesting dynamic, because squares, well, actually this is a grand cross. It creates a crossroads, and you can either go and dive into this crossroad in a very conscious way, or it will take you into an unconscious depth of yourself, and you're going to have to go meet that, just by default. And I never suggest that people, just live life by default. So when you're going through all of that, I think it's, a very powerful dynamic. But it is asking you to go in and look at your past while looking at your future. And again, Louise, this was perfect that you shared your story, because the South Node is our past. So if there are places where we can pull, the gifts from the past, but also close it out, close out anything. I mean, really go and own it, though, before you release it. You can't release something you don't own. And I think that's the dynamic of the energy that this moon is working with, because it's squaring the nodes, but the sun is lighting it up from Gemini. And then, the moon, being in Sagittarius, I think really is, it's allowing us to do the inner work to ready ourselves to create the new dream. And so from that standpoint, it's kind of like a conscious attempt to work with ourselves through a waking Bardo state, if that makes sense. Because the way a normal Bardo state would be working would be if you're getting ready to leave here in the physical and you're going back through life recapitulation, but we came here to keep the body. So, and again, I've talked about this before, we are always going through death and rebirth, always. If you're here, the cells are always going through death and rebirth, always, on the atomic and subatomic levels, molecular, all of it. And it's part of the way that works. It's also working with our metabolic function. One of the reasons that we feel, or we can feel, like our metabolism has shifted, part of it is the food supply. I mean, they have just destroyed our food supply in this country, and I can speak to this personally because I think I mentioned to y'all before, I did all these tests, stool sample, blood, and then also the urine samples, and pulled over 120 biomarkers. And I'm working with that consciously to find out why I have been so tired, why I'm worn out, why my testosterone's at 120. I mean, it's ridiculous. I do feel like that I've made a lot of conscious choices with regards to food, and just a lot of different things that have slowly been able to give me more energy back, and I'm having to rebuild it. It's one of those things where if we don't create a crisis for ourselves, we don't ever dive in to see a bigger picture of something. And if something's happening for us individually, I assure you other people are also going through it. And especially, with the poisoning of the population that's happened in this country, I mean, I'm certainly not the only person that's been experiencing this type of thing. So I'm hoping that once I go through this, I can, offer other grounded feedback. I mean, you don't know something, that you don't know. And, I mean, I wouldn't have known a lot of this before if I'd not had to go through the process of deep diving into my own cells. What's happening on a metabolic function, what's happening with regards to my minerals and my vitamins and how they work and how they don't work. But one thing that I have seen enough, and I've researched enough with all this is one reason that Americans specifically, I mean, it also happens in other developed countries, but it's one reason why our moods can be in really crazy places. It's because of hormonal shifts. And they have purposely poisoned people as a population. They do not want you smart. They don't want you making smart decisions. They don't want you going against the enslavement. And I know that may sound a bit out there, but it really is true. And there's no reason that we've had these chemicals added to our food over my lifetime. But I mean, I don't think any of this stuff that was in a food supply now was in the foods even when I was growing up in the 70s, even though it was manufactured. And you may say, well, why am I bringing that up? Well, it's core physical health. If you are feeling depleted in any way, I invite you to go look for people that are talking about functional medicine on Facebook. You've got Mark Hyman, what's his face? Josh Axe, Daniel Pompa talks about the cells. I mean, if you just Google functional medicine, there's a whole plethora. They're all just coming out the woodwork to get people healthy again. So I don't want to go into that as a tangent, but I am saying that there are options for these types of things. And part of this is us taking our power back over our physical health. And so it's no rhyme or reason that everything is happening the way it is. And again, I was going to say that earlier, and then I got taken off into another direction. So when you're looking at all of the things happening with the government, especially for the United States, but all the governments are going through these huge changes, don't attach to what you're seeing that are shifting. I know a lot of it looks messy, and it is messy. It's not going to be pretty. The only thing I will say to that is let's just hold presence that we don't have to go through, and I don't think we will, but we don't have to go through this energy of Neptune and Aries like we did 160 years ago with the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and things like that. And the reason I say that we're not going to do that is because of the fact that back then people were still deeply immersed in primal Mars energy. They were still under the deep hypnosis that you had to take power over other people and populations much deeper than we do it now, because we didn't have the technologies back then, I think, that we do now. Well, actually, that could even be a whole different rabbit hole. But what was happening back then, if you look at all the world wars, we were still in a very deep place of hypnosis with regards to allowing a government to tell us that we had to go fight other people and kill other people. And most people are not in that space anymore. You do still have some people that's still immersed in the DNA, and they're playing out the war archetype. But by and large, most people are not in the war archetype. I mean, you've got the government still attempting to play it out as a storyline, but most people don't. They're not interested in that anymore. We really have done a big, huge amount of shifting the collective consciousness to lift us out of the war perception. It's a dying, way of life. I mean, we have been warring on this planet for so long, and it's exhausting. So don't feed into all of that. They attempt to, keep you in a war mental state, but your heart would never, ever, ever want to go hurt another human. We just don't. That's not part of who we are, not at our core. And so, and again, it's easy to, maybe try to get pulled into some of that, but that's not what we came here to do. We came here to awaken individually, but also collectively. And the more we can do that, just staying grounded, everything else is going to just fall apart. It's going to be potentially challenging, though, with all of this. A couple of things I read. Who was it? A while ago I was reading. The Sloth Soul Astrology. I think I was reading him. He was talking about the polarization and the dynamics energetically of, if you think it's crazy right now, he says, don't get into, fear mongering, but it may ramp up even worse because of the astrological dynamics between, maybe for the next month or so. Part of it, I think, is Mercury square Neptune and squaring Saturn, and Mercury is communication. Squares to Saturn and Neptune are really difficult. And especially when it's playing out, with people like, Donald Trump and whoever it is in the political world. Or this can also be business. Whoever has lots of money. So you'd be talking about Elon Musk, Gates, even what's left of a Soros. I don't know that he exists anymore, quite frankly. Walton, is it Melinda Walton? I forget which Walton it is. Whichever main Walton it is. She's coming forth and fighting. You're going to find a lot of people in positions of business power that are going to come forth to express some sort of how should we say it? They're going to be putting their own 2 cents in. Let's just put it that way. And all of this, at the end of the day, no matter what it looks like, and this can be kind of scary, but it's not really scary. It's going to create change. That's really all I can say about it. But we agreed to go through this change, and it has to happen for a lot of reasons. Part of that is that we're so habituated into the script, the enslavement of creating in physicality in the material world. We're so busy creating all of the stuff that we don't need. Not really, we don't need it. Americans specifically, I think, are overstimulated in, I have to have something new. I've got to buy this new. I've got to buy this. I've got to buy this. Got to buy this. I need a bigger house. Well, I've got to change a different car. Some people go and change cars every year or two. That's absurd. First of all, you can't afford to do that if you're financing the vehicle. And then if you drive a brand new vehicle off the lot, it loses a third of the value from the moment you drive it off the lot. It's like there's all these dynamics that are built in to our perception of money and our worth that make it really difficult to navigate and to keep ourselves in balance. Those things are going to continue to expand and contract. And again, you don't have to do this with a fear, but it's taking us to a place where we're having to, at our core, decide what's important. You're absolutely going to be put into a place of, we're all doing, and again, this isn't just us. This is every nation on the planet, every human being that's operating within whatever dynamic they're operating in, their own monetary systems. Everything is going through an overhaul. And we're also looking at it from the connectivity of everything. And we don't necessarily think about that. And they have consciously, partly by choice, but partly through a globalization type thing. There's pluses and minuses with both of those aspects, but the most difficult thing is that if we're all dependent on each other for goods and services that are across an ocean, well, what happens if you can't get things across an ocean? Then you're going to shut down certain parts of an economy in another country, and that can happen. I mean, we're so, and of course I'm going into the 3D aspect of this, but I'm being taken into the 3D because that is how we're living in physicality. Now, we're being trained to go into how to create life beyond all of the limitation in 3D. I mean, that's really what we're doing. That's what we came here to do. But in doing that, it's also changing the way we prioritize what's important. And if you are still in a place where you're conditioned to make decisions in your life based around your materiality and what you have in the world as far as accumulation in the material world, I'm suggesting that we're going to a place where you might want to consider really making big decisions on, is that important or is it not important anymore? And again, part of this has to do with soul growth, because you can't take it with you. I mean, when we leave here in the physicality, you can't take it with you. I'm not saying that we're leaving here in the physicality. I am saying, though, that we're being taken into places of going into greater choice points and deciding on a core soul level what's important. If you're already deeply connected with your family, your friends, your community, things like that, and you're actively participating with stuff, then I think you're in a good place with regards to, soul growth and progression. Actually, that's not even a good statement, because it's not about a judgment and there's no comparison. Everyone's experience is going to be just unique with where we're at. I'm taking into it just from a standpoint of, we really are at a place where we're at a critical juncture point with regards to soul progression. And if we're constantly still trying to focus only on the materiality, either getting a really good job, to get the money, to get the this, to do, it's kind of like it's keeping us on the hamster wheel of life. And I mean, even myself, I'm really giving up more and more of the hamster wheel of life. And it's not an easy thing, because I'm also taken into the projection of the value that we place onto the material world, either through, our years of history, our furniture, keepsakes that we have, whatever it is that we have in physicality. And I mean, I'm in a deep personal relationship with this stuff. I'm having to say, is this important? Is this necessary? And you may hear that and say, I've never really thought about that. And it really is true, because part of it, it's important because of the densification. And sometimes we have things in our material world that grounds us. It grounds us here as human. It grounds us into the experience. At the same time, it also can keep us in limitation. So I think we're always in this place of, are we creating a limitation in this particular moment of time, as opposed to next week when circumstances may change, and then we may not have as much physicality that keeps us in a heavy feeling. And I say that because, again, everything's a frequency. And I remember when I had just moved to New Orleans, and I didn't really have a lot of stuff. I didn't move a lot of physical stuff. I remember the freedom that I felt, because I wasn't so encumbered by densification of stuff. And it was just a completely different. I was taken into that the other day, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that in years. And again, at that point, I was going through my first nodal return. Our nodes the moon's nodes are an emotional point where we're going through slow growth from a core emotional presence level. And so that happens at, 18 and a half, 19 years, happens at like 37, 38 years old, happens again here at, 50, I had a nodal return last year, 56 years old. And then again, 18 years after that. So those nodal returns can bring us to big, huge choice points with regards to internal emotional work that we come here to do, especially when we're, partnering with people. But more importantly, the deeper aspects of who we are as an individual, through the emotional expression. So, yeah. Okay, I didn't mean to get going. Okay, so that was that part. The bigger part I wanted to go into dynamically, though, and I think I might have mentioned this before, but it's pertinent now again because of the dynamic we're going through, the difficulty. All of this opened up last month, 1 month ago, and I'm told to bring it up because of moon cycles. That Scorpio full moon that we did on May the 12th at 22 Scorpio. That was a big deal. And it really opened us up into this deeper work. It did it because of when I tracked the oscillating Lilith points in the charts, well, actually just in the sky, not anybody's specific chart. That was the first time that Lilith went into that point. And she goes back and forth, all the way through the end of this year and possibly into the beginning of next year. I'm not sure. I haven't done 2026 yet. But the reason that you may feel the need to go in and do this deep inner work, I think Lilith to me represents the divine feminine as an expression in its highest expression. If you're doing, not so great Lilith work, you may be, down in the gutter looking for sex in wrong places. You might be playing out all the addictive personality stuff and, really creating some not so nice cause-effect reality for yourself. Or this may be people you know. And again, she's going back and forth, but she's doing this in Scorpio. Scorpio is where you've got, all that. It's the darker sexual expression. It's also the secrets. So it's the other reason that I say the rest of this year we're going through individual and collective Bardo state. And I think the United States is going to go through its own little Bardo state. I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not going to begin to project a value onto it. For greatest results for everything we're doing, it's best to just stay in your heart and don't project a value into any of it, but just observe. I do think that by the time we get to the eclipses in September, September the 7th, the midpoint is going to be the 14th, and then the second eclipse will be on the 21st. That first one's going to be in Libra, but the second one is going to be in Scorpio on September 21st. The reason I think that that's going to be a lot of action-oriented movement is because Mars is going to be activating and crossing over the oscillating Lilith point. There's also going to be other convergences between the interpolated Lilith, and I'm not going to go into all these things because I'm introducing too much to you. But there's going to be a lot of dynamics that happen in and out of the interpolated Lilith that's going to just take us to our core. Let me just say that. And as we go through all of this, I think it's going to take us into more of an awakening. The other dynamic that I have observed is, and this is going to start for the first time actually. Well, actually, it did already start. Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't the Scorpio moon, but when did this? Oh, I'm sorry. It's about to happen. Okay. So starting on June the 16th, oscillating Lilith moves into Sagittarius. The reason I bring that up is for this. I don't know how many people have heard of the constellation Ophiuchus, but when you look at the calendar that we're on a 12-month calendar. They talked about, years ago we were on a 13-month calendar that basically followed moon. It was like your solar and lunar calendar, and so you'd have 13 months of 28 days. So there were 4 weeks exact, and it all felt perfectly except for one day that you'd have at the end of the year. But you had a third constellation. Most people are calling that Ophiuchus. But Ophiuchus is crossed over within Sagittarius. Ophiuchus has been referred to as by astrologers as the serpent bearer. I wasn't sure if it actually ended up as the 13th oversoul as a function, and I'm still not clear on all of this, but I think it did honor itself as the serpent bearer. It is like higher consciousness. And so oscillating Lilith is going to go into the first stars of Ophiuchus at the beginning of Sagittarius in 5 days, by the 16th. And oscillates, as she oscillates backwards, she's going to go back into Scorpio, back and forth between the Ophiuchus constellation in Sagittarius and back into Scorpio. And so that's the other dynamic that I think is happening that's really going to take people between higher mind and lower mind. So it's like we're going to dip into higher expression, but we're going to continually be taken back into anything that's hidden, anything not dealt with that's Scorpio. And it's going to go back over that Scorpio moon on May the 12th several times, back and forth, all the rest of this year. So that's the other reason that I really feel like we're in a place that people are going to feel like it's instant karma. If you're putting out something in the world and it's really not great, you're going to get it back. And I mean, it's going to be instantaneous. And the reason that I say that too, Juno of partnering is going retrograde in Scorpio. So let me see when it actually... Okay. That's funny. Okay. During the spring eclipses, Juno had just gone into Sagittarius and was at the beginning of the Ophiuchus star system. It retrograded in the middle, basically, of the eclipses in April, and it started going backwards, diving back into Scorpio. And Juno was next to that Scorpio moon at 22 degrees. And it's really... it's taking us into a deep dive with regards to how we partner with everything in our life. Juno is usually it's a marriage asteroid. It's really any type of partnering, any type, business, your family dynamics, everything. So Juno has been retrograding in Scorpio all this time, and it does not go direct until July the 10th. And I think I mentioned something else about July the 10th. I forget what happened on that day. But the thing that's important with this, it's going to be going back and forth with this oscillating Lilith pattern. And as Lilith continually goes into Sagittarius and hits that first degree of Ophiuchus, it's kind of like it's taking us in to our deepest divine feminine expression, but from a place of higher mind. And so as it continually dips into higher mind, dips back into Scorpio, you're going to feel like you're having to face how you partner in the world. But once Juno starts going direct, it's going to meet up with Vesta, which is house and home. It's how we, I think, find nurturance on a more deep divine level. All of those, or both of those, meet up at the end of August before going into those eclipses in September. So at that point, once they cross all that, all of those are going to go into the Ophiuchus star system. So our perception of reality from a partnering standpoint, Juno goes in October the 6th. As Juno goes through that, I think we're going to go into a higher expression of how to partner with people and places and things in our lives. But we're only going to get that information like October to, actually it goes all the way through December. That's almost a 3-month journey for Juno. And there's a lot happening between then and now. But the reason I go into all of this is to let you really know it's a long-term process. Nothing is going to happen immediately. We talk about Pluto through Capricorn took us through 16 years of a journey from 2008 until November last year. And it was breaking apart structures. It's in Aquarius. It's now in retrograde. But when Pluto goes direct again in, let me see, when is it? October 13th, Pluto goes direct. We're going to have more forward movement, I think, as far as our transformational energy that's working with us. Because Pluto in Aquarius is let me see, that's sextiling the Aries, but what we've been getting is transformational energy. Pluto has been sextiling Neptune and Saturn, which has been in Aries. But once they go back into Capricorn, back into Pisces, the energy is not going to be assisting us as far as that until they get back into Aries next year. That's why I say that February of 2026 really is the time when we begin the deep transformational new beginnings that gives us structure without being tied to the past. So if you find yourself, like Louise talked about, going through all this energy like a life review, it could be with friends, family, any type of dynamic, anything to do with your past. And this could be past lives. It can be all of the above, because we're not a separation, and we're not separate from our Akashic records. We're not separate from our multidimensional expression. So as we go dive into all of that, we have to go own it. And again, some people on a just relative basis, we don't have to do it in a way where it's difficult. This can happen in a very natural way. Some people are going to go through difficult passages with it, because if there's a place where their soul has not opened up to something, they're going to be taken into whatever it is that they didn't deal with. So you're still going to find people that have to go through difficult parts of the journey. Don't attach to anyone else's story. Please, 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 whatever you're doing, you can be in attendance of, but you don't take on the story. And I think that's one of the most difficult things that we really, have to learn in this lifetime. By the time November comes around too, though, there's going to be a huge pile up with the new moon on November the 20th. Mercury is retrograding. It's going to go over Mars. It's going to go over the Sun. It's going to go over Venus. Before coming direct, it will not meet up with the fates. But Clotho and Atropos' fate come together on November the 28th. And it happens almost at this full moon in Scorpio again. So I won't go into the depths on that, but a lot of big energy is going to happen in November that's going to take us into, and it's all happening on oscillating levels before going into next year. So again, we're not out of the woods on any of this. At the same time, here's the other part to this. You're always creating our reality every second of the minute of the day. So you can stay in your heart, and you can stay in peace. And you can always send that peace out into the world, which we do in our meditation, work that we do. Again, everything's a frequency. and it's how you work with that energy and then put it out into the world. So, okay, that went lots of places. Again, I never know where I'm going to go with this stuff. But I hope that gives you a bit more depth as far as being able to kind of perceive what's happening out there. Again, do not attach. I know things are happening in Los Angeles. I know things are happening in Israel. I know things are happening in Jordan and Iran and Syria and Russia and China. And there's all sorts of dynamics that are playing out. The main thing I think for us, individually to know, but also collectively, is whatever's happening anywhere on the planet, there's nothing that's happening that's not supposed to happen. If people are going through a very difficult transition, as far as either a country or a group, a city, a state, whatever it is, that soul group chose to be present to go through whatever that is in that particular moment of time. At the end of the day, this is the big takeaway from all of this. This portal of power that we're in 2025 going into next year, it all has to do with taking our personal power back. How do you take your power? And it's not necessarily a power over. Just because you see something happening out there does not mean you have to go try to overtake it as a power. You may not like something. You don't like something. You either work with the system. You can call your congressman. You can call this one. You can call that one if you think that's going to matter. I'm not saying it wouldn't matter, but I am saying the Good Old Boy Network is very limited on what they can and cannot do. I'm suggesting to you that they listen to people way above your pay grade. It's actually above their pay grade, in truth. So as we're attempting to go through and create change in the world, we still have this Good Old Boy Network in place, and it's worldwide. That, I think, is going to take some time to break apart and continue to disintegrate. Because, as much as we go through disintegration, there's still so much of the dark energy that wants to keep that energy field together. Because they live on our fear. They live on, it's all the loosh, Loosh. It's these dark, aspects of people that are still very activated that feel like they have to play out all of that fear projection, all of the control mechanisms, all of that. Part of it, they're doing it for money. Part of it, though, they have sold their souls so deeply that if they dare go against those powers that be, they either end up in physical death because they're taken out completely, or there's some other dynamic. The level of blackmail and control, greed, manipulation that's projected onto Congress people, bigger business people that play, deeper in the field, it's really vast. And again, we don't know what we don't know. And if you ever hope that someone would make a change, either that runs a business or something else, there's many times so many layers of control of things of why they can't make a different decision, either because of physical death potential or some other dynamic that creates a catastrophe with some other, either a person, a big group. A lot of times they threaten to take down power grids. It is so vast, the dynamics that are happening, and they're beyond what most of us can perceive. And if your mind stays in a place, of love and, compassion and caring and nurturing, whatever else, your mind is not going to be able to go down that dark rabbit hole the way that they create in the dark. And again, I mean, free will universe, we get to be as light as we want to create. They can create as dark as they want to create, up to a certain extent. I mean, I do think that there is, caps on what they're able to do in the dark, because otherwise they would have destroyed the planet a long time ago. I don't think that they can do that, and I don't think that we'll go through any nuclear stuff. I mean, even though the atomic bomb and stuff like that got popped in, the 30s and 40s were not great times for the planet. But again, I honestly feel like the collective consciousness is not in that space. I mean, I think we've evolved as a collective group. So a lot of this is just fear-mongering stuff. Don't attach. Do not attach. That's my suggestion to you. So, okay, well, I hope that's given you a good sense of how to be in the world right now and not, become attached to the disintegration. Because, again, the other part to this, we're coming out the other end, and we are going through deep enlightenment states. We're going through amazing levels and layers of internal shift, of soul progression and growth. We are really put in places where we're taking our power. The other part to this too, I think, is that it's almost like we're in a diamond mine. It's like we are, if you think about how diamonds are made, I don't know if I've used this analogy before, but if I have, just bear with it because it really bears repeating. Diamonds really are formed by pressure. They're deep in the earth. There's all of this, and this happens over time. But I think that type of pressure is happening, just obviously in a different way. It's not happening in carbon-based reality. It's happening in silicate-based reality. But it's also it's frequency. Everything's a frequency. So, as we as humans, we've got our physicality in the physical body. But we've also got the emotional body, the mental body, and spiritual bodies that are along the etheric blueprint. The etheric body is the fifth main body. And the physical is always an outpicturing of what's happening with the other bodies. But to me, it feels like we're going through a pressure. It's like a cosmic pressure. And part of that is the adamantine particles and all the solar flares that are coming in. And some people want to say, they just poo-poo it and say that doesn't matter. I highly disagree. There is no separation. I think if we are getting plasma from the sun, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I do think it is changing the morphogenetic field on this planet. I think, and the field I don't think is limited to the planet, but everything is in a constant shift and expansion. And part of that is the Neptune. Neptune is the dream, but it's also the collective of how we perceive ourselves cosmically and its higher function. And as long as that's at beginning of Aries, first, second degree, it really is seeding the complete new field of consciousness, let's just say. And people are trying to feel into what that means. They're trying to find ways to articulate it, how to talk about it. It's so funny when I talk about all this, there's a part of it that feels like I'm zoned out, like I'm here, but I'm not here. It's so weird. When Jude used to talk about these things, I was like, how does she go into all this? And she would just always say, Spirit's just giving me this. And I can honestly say that's where I'm at with this stuff. I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth, and there it is. So, and again, I'll always tell you, do the same thing she always told us. I mean, go into your heart. If this feels true, if it goes all the way to the core of your being, if it feels right to your bones, then sit with it, and feel into what's true and not true. And yeah. So on that note, I've been going. Lord, it's 9:25. I think that hits most of the bigger parts of where Spirit kind of wanted to go today. I hope that this is really working for you. I mean, obviously, everybody's coming back. We're up to 16 now, and I think we might have lost one or two. So, and again, I mean, there's no mistakes with this, and I do think if any of this information is coming forth, if it's going into our bones, it's going into our structures, then it's shifting us. I mean, Jude always used to say this is just light language coming in, and I do think that's true. I mean, when you go beyond all of the old perceptions of reality, all of the box, that keeps you stuck on how you perceive something, what you think is true or not true, when we go into all that, I mean, it really can be just mind-blowing, which is a good thing, because we really do want to give up the mind. Jude always talked about the mind, wanting to do this and that. And, okay. Well, I think on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get myself over here so we can do the meditative work. Because it's not to say that we've not already been in the meditative work. It's like there is no separation from that either. Jude always used to say she was working on us before going into these things. It's like when the field cut. I mean, there is no separation in the field. So as long as we're in the field, we're always being, shifted and worked with. As far as the conscious. It got dark on me out there. So, yes. So if you're not in your nice, quiet place in your jammies in your bed, or however, wherever you are, to get still and go into this nice healing space. The other thing that's really interesting, I mean, when I always, go into this, afterwards, it's amazing how many of you really just fall asleep deep. And I leave the call going. I think I left it for a whole other hour the last time, and I think there were still like maybe 7 or 8 of you that were still on the call that whole time. So I don't know how many of you are, if you go to sleep, if you're in such a deep theta state, that you're, just in that deep processing of healing. I don't know how much of it that you're here, in this awareness, or if you just literally go to sleep, to allow that deep healing to just go in on a core level. It doesn't matter. But it's interesting how many of you are able to hold this energy, because, and I do think it is deeply healing. When we can allow that level of healing to come forth. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, I gotta get my water and get. Reminds me of Jude when she was getting herself together for the meditation stuff. Okay. All right. We'll just get still and open your heart, of course. That's always the first thing that we have to do to allow for the deep dive. Again, I'm really always appreciative, that everyone has always made time to come together with this, because I do think the more people that we have and can regularly have, attend these calls, it just amplifies all of this healing energy for every single one of us. And as some of you don't necessarily think that your attendance may matter, but I would say that that's not true. You may not understand a lot of the things that I'm presenting, but that's not important. The fact is that you're present for it, and just by choosing to place your attendance with something is half of the battle. Not that it's a battle, but intention has a big part to do with the reality we're creating. And the fact that we all come here with the intention to heal ourselves, but also each other. There's not a better than or less than here. There's nothing here. At the same time, everything is here. There's no separation. So as we go in, presence just is. And I think the more we all get out of the way, that we really are shifting on core levels. We allow for a depth of healing that happens. Several of you have mentioned over, this last year of doing this, that you'll feel just so refreshed after the call. And I'm like, cool, that's why I'm doing it. and I get the same thing. So it's not, yes, I'm working, for myself, energetically with spirit coming in and doing this, but all of you are also contributing to my healing. There's no separation of all that. There's not my ego's out of the way with regards to this stuff. And I think that's why it all works. There's no ego space here. This is only all of us at presence. I may be the one articulating everything. But that's part of what Judith took me into the all that is to do. So anyway, so if you're not in your quiet room or space by now, go ahead and get there. And take just a moment to reflect back on all of the information that just came forth. All of the dynamics, don't attach to any of it. Because anything that was articulated, your soul heard beyond the mind. Your mind heard it, but your heart took it all in. And if you are always in, in the open perception of this energy and the healing energy and everything else, that your soul gets exactly what it needs. Your mind may attempt to understand some things better or follow it or track it, but don't even attach too much to anything that you didn't quite understand. On a quantum level, everything is immediacy. Everything. So even though your mind may not understand it, your soul will feel it to be true. Otherwise, your soul would not continue to be drawn to participate in the calls. Something that would feel like it's out of touch. So, as we go into this, let's imagine that we're in a place as a diamond would be in its carbon creation in the earth. Imagine that you are a particulate, except you're just in the cosmos. We don't have to have all that density pushing us and pressing us into that formulation. There are many energies that are coming in and are hitting the planet. The cosmic sun is so aligning with us on a deeper level. We're going through so many energetic shifts with mass coronal injections, all the X-class flares, and just all this stuff. There's all these adamantine particles that are coming to meet us where we are and shifting our DNA. They're literally shifting our DNA. So is much softer. That's happening on a much softer level than the form of diamond being created in the earth. It's a similar type of activation, and yet it's a completely different function. Well, the function is similar, but the process is very unique. Imagine that this is stardust coming, and it's activating your own DNA and your own particulates. And the more conscious you are and you're working with that energy, you're allowing that energy to go very deeply into the atomic and subatomic structures of your body and allowing for healing that you never dreamed possible. A depth of wholeness that you're coming back to that you had completely forgot about. And it's not just in this lifetime. You're doing it for every single life that you've ever lived in totality. You may be even to a place now, after having done these calls for, about a year and 2 or 3 months, you may be in a place where you're here just as an awareness, but when you're in this deep meditative place, you're more in the immediacy of the moment, and you can release your perception even of your physicality. Part of that's bilocation. As you go much deeper into who you are as multidimensional awareness, you are less you're less concerned about staying in the physicality than you are of going into who you've been as multidimensional expression over lifetimes. So when you're in these spaces, these transcendent spaces, you can, as Louise talked about, have bleed overs from the past lives of places where you are trying to meet yourself, places where you're trying to go and heal so many repetitive aspects of distorted thought forms and patterns that continually creep up on you. And that really is at the very core of what we're all attempting to clean out, all 8 billion people. This is the Akashic Records opening up for you. Part of that is Neptune in Aries. Neptune coming into Aries is, again, it's the dream, and it's also the delusion of what was, individually and collectively. The Akashic Records is certainly a very Neptunian concept. If Neptune represents the dream, it's every dream that we've ever had throughout the entirety of creation as human expression. It's your capacity to fall into that as primordial awareness of who you've been throughout all of these lifetimes of expression. It's why you may go into dream states and things come forth that you think, oh, I never thought of that. Or who was I during this time period? When you're in this deep state of theta consciousness, the deeper you go into this, you may lose all reference to your physicality. You can certainly ask Spirit to take you into any place or aspect of yourself that still needs to be reclaimed. This is still a very active part of the work that we're doing here on a soul level. We're still attempting to go reclaim all of the lost and unowned aspects and parts of ourselves throughout millennia. This is lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes. So what is the imagery that comes forth for you? Each one of you will go and be taken into a very unique aspect of yourself that wants to be reclaimed. Some of you may say that you don't have any perception of reality coming through. You don't have a dream state or some aspect of yourself that's coming as a vision. And that's okay. There may be no aspect of yourself that wants to come forth and speak to you at this particular moment of time. And you shouldn't try to force anything. If something does come forth for you, then it's something that you're ready to let go of. And as we do this level of work, you don't always have to stay in a place of going and meeting all of the lower forms of function. As I mentioned with this grand cross, the moon and the sun are in opposition, and they are squaring the nodes, the south and north node. This is your past and future emotional expression. You certainly can, if you ask, be taken into and downloaded with all of your wonderful gifts that you've had throughout other lifetimes. This is another part of the way that we can consciously work with this energy to take us into a more vast and deep understanding of who we are. Jupiter having entered Cancer. Cancer is the sign of our house and home and our nurturing and how we express ourselves. Jupiter is going to expand all of that area and blow it up and take you into a deeper awareness that you never dreamed of. It's going to ride in that sign for quite some time, for a whole year. Jupiter basically takes 12 years to get through the whole zodiac. So we've got a whole year of Jupiter in Cancer. When Uranus goes into Gemini next month, you will then have, I forget, I want to say it's 8 years. But Uranus and Gemini really is higher mind expression. Gemini is communication, how we communicate in the world, and Uranus going into that can be completely revelatory. So much can come forth. And by next February, we'll be working in a completely new paradigm. Sometimes it's difficult to have patience as we go through these big shifts and changes, birthing into our new reality. And yet that's exactly what's necessary. This is basically an exercise going in for every single human being regarding my will and the divine will. The capacity to take power in your life, but also doing it in such a way where you're in divine receptivity, so that you're not creating from a place of your lower mind, but you're allowing Spirit to guide you divinely toward highest expression of creation. This time period, through the rest of 2025 and going into January and February of 2026, really is about the disintegration of everything that no longer serves you. so that you can allow for the new formulation, divine formulation of the co-creation of your new life. Because it's both. It's not just something happening to you and for you, but it's also happening through you. And depending on where your soul is in its own capacity to participate in the co-creation, will be actively in charge of the depth of the change that you'll go through. All of this has to do with your own individual progression of your soul. And every single human is going through this on the planet for the rest of this year and into next year. The disintegration that's happening individually can look very unique. The disintegration that's happening on subgroup levels that is happening, again, can be very unique depending on the subgroup. The time that that subgroup was created and where it is on the progression of its own soul. Yes, even small groups have its own soul progression because you're participative in a collective soul group. There are things that that particular soul group will learn in relationship to everything else around it. Even for myself, I come back and I realize that I've gone out for 5 minutes at a time. I have no idea how long in between sometimes when I speak or not speak. As Spirit continually takes me in and guides this whole group energetic and shift of healing, I'm still going through my own personal journey and the way I'm perceiving all of these different energetic shifts and revelations as they come through with regards to me on a personal level, but also on a collective level. Everything that every human is doing is an inside job. This is certainly addressing the spiritual and emotional and mental aspects of who we are, while also being invited to go in and look at the physicality of the miscreated energy that still is formulating and outpicturing into the world of form for each of us. If you don't like the result that you're having in your life, go in and observe yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, dreams, but feel into the frequency of where you are. and ask yourself why you don't have a different result if you are not manifesting exactly what you want. Do you feel your mind do you perceive your mind feeling lighter and lighter every call? Or you carry less emotional baggage and less mental baggage with you? We've all undergone such deep shifts in how we perceive our reality, but also to the extent that we carry emotional trauma and drama and baggage, but also mental trauma and drama and baggage, the story. We've all continued to shift the story. Are you still finding that there's still part of the story that you're carrying that you no longer need? And if so, just ask Spirit just to dissolve it. So if anything came up for you to be released, just give that over to the universe and ask Saint Germain and the Violet Flame to just dissolve it if it doesn't feel dissolved yet. And although it's not necessary, we'll just continually invite the entire company of heaven, Mother, Father, God, with all the ascended masters through infinite presence, the entire archangelic kingdoms, the mighty Elohim builders of form, and all of the elemental kingdoms, as well as Saint Germain and the Violet Flame, the Diamond Christ Light, and the 12th Golden Ray to all go in and transmute and shift any and all other discordant energies out of our fields and bring us into the greatest cosmic adamantine particle coherence that we can hold as an energetic frequency. And that all of that may go in to strengthen all of the different levels of our body and the physicality. Of course, we don't have to articulate them, but we'll go ahead and mention all of them just to make sure we're covered. That all the bodies, the skeletal system, the musculature system, the lymphatic system, the myofascial system, which is part of the musculature, all of the organs, the circulatory system, all of the skin, the biggest organ on the body, the digestive system, particularly because of the challenges that we're going through in attempting to process food products. So many humans that are still eating from the inside of grocery stores and not eating whole foods and vegetables and more natural products, all the chemicalization that we're taking in. May we request for the highest capacity to transmute any and all synthetic and non-food material that we've had to consume either through conditioning and or no other option during survival mode consciousness. And may this be true for every single human being that's living on the planet and having to live with those circumstances. May we ask for continual clearing and purging of any and all mental non-necessity projections that have been projected onto us in the world of form by mass media, by the entertainment industry, by anything that's non-natural that has held any amount of space within our mental body. Anything that continues to control and manipulate us or keep us living in limitation. And the same would be true for any and all distorted thought forms and projections that have been put into us with the emotional body. All of the trauma, all of the this is millennia of trauma that we've carried within the emotional body through multidimensional lifetimes of expression. All of the distorted thought forms, the desires, anything that was outside of a divine creation template. May all of that be healed for every single human being throughout their multidimensional expression with all lifetimes. And may any and all spiritual miscreations that we've had throughout the whole existence of humanity be brought in and cleansed by Saint Germain and the Violet Flame, but also the Diamond Christ Light, and taken into complete dissolution to allow for the highest potentiality of creation, as Neptune and Saturn have come into Aries to give us a sneak preview of creating in our highest potentiality in this particular point of time, before they go back into Pisces to revisit any last levels and layers of stuff that we've carried. May all of our individual and collective spiritual bodies be cleansed and purified to the highest capacity according to each of our soul contracts at any given point of time. And while we're in these deep theta states of consciousness with Mother, Father, God, and all the company of heaven, may we receive the divine blessings of having all of our DNA brought back online in our divine expression, so that we may live in our highest capacity and function in this very propitious moment of time. And may we all be in deep gratitude for this amazing depth of high vibrational frequency energy that Spirit has come to bring forth with us, as we've created as a co-creation for each other, for creating not just for ourselves in this particular moment of time, but to pass out through all of the 8 billion people on the planet. But also sending this peace out through the entire universe, as well as all the other son and daughter and mother-son universes. Going out to our highest and deepest and most vast cosmic expression of awareness. And may whoever hears these calls at any particular point of time be granted the grace of the highest potential healing expression and vibratory rate that their particular souls can handle, that particular moment of time. And if anyone feels that it's overwhelming energetically, may it be brought back to just the perfect divine presence to meet their soul frequency at that moment. And again, I'm in such deep gratitude for everyone that's joined us on the call. And as usual, I'll keep the call open so that you may stay in this healing frequency for a much longer time period. I'll actually end the recording and call, but we'll keep this frequency open for everyone who wants to continue the healing frequencies that are currently open for you. Eternal love and infinite blessings to all.